My name is Rachel Surwitz, and I'm the CEO and founder of Woken. Today, we're going to talk about how to onboard to a new role. The key concept of onboarding that you want to remember is that companies may not do this perfectly. And so you want to feel like the project manager or the owner of your own onboarding, right? And so that is confusing because you don't know what you don't know, and you are going to be new to that environment. But there's some tools and tips and tactics that can help them help you to make sure that you're getting that successful foundation of knowledge that's going to set you up for success. So keep in mind, a company, it's like entering a new universe. There's going to be new languages, new words, new tools, new systems, so many new things going on, and even the intangibles of the new culture. So just be a sponge in the beginning, learn a lot, take a lot of notes, ask a lot of questions, and eventually you will feel like you can better understand and navigate that new universe. And the other thing to keep in mind, right, is that with new people around you, there's also going to be new communication styles. So the best way to avoid any miscommunication, especially in the beginning when you don't really know how people are and what their style is documentation. So be proactive with your communication, be explicit with your communication, and when you document things, whether you send an agenda before a meeting, you send notes after a meeting, or maybe you share an onboarding plan that's visual. These are ways to make sure you're literally getting onto the same page. You might send a weekly email update, right? Thoughts and recaps before or after meetings, agendas, notes. I love shared documents, whether it's a Google Doc, Google Sheets, or any sort of shared tools where you can literally get on the same page with people, right? And so the same goes for having your 30, 60, 90-day plan. And so even if they give you an onboarding document, you can actually ask for the editable version of it so that you can make it your own. You can add to it. Or you might look up certain templates, and we have one on our end. But you might want to build out your own 30, 60, 90 tool or template or document to make sure you're tracking sort of what you're doing and what your expectations are in the early days. The other thing to keep in mind is just understanding the big picture, right? It's such a great time to understand what are the key stakeholders, what's the org chart, and just historically understand, the company and how all the pieces fit together. It's not just your role in your team, but when you understand the big picture, it's going to help you really drive that value and connect the dots. You always want to take notes, right? Just assume you're going to forget things, especially when there's so much new information being thrown at you. So really just document everything and really think about the balance. What are you learning? Who are you meeting with? And when am I supposed to get up to speed and on what? That's a great rule of thumb just to keep those key things in mind, as you're going about your onboarding. You want to meet with every single team member and have a one-on-one, right? So your goal for those meetings is, build rapport, get to know them a little bit, learn about their role, get an introduction and overview of what it is they do, learn their preferred communication style. You can say, what would be the best way to get in touch with you or communicate with you? Everyone's a little different, whether they prefer a messenger or an email or a text or a phone call. And learn their tips on how to best thrive in that organization, right? If you can download their learnings or those nuances of, what they've learned over the many months or years that they've been there, it's just such a great way to understand the culture quickly. And what are those top tips that they have that maybe they had to learn the hard way, and you'll get ahead faster and you'll understand that organization way better. Ensure that you have a regular meeting cadence with your manager, ideally once a week. And then think about, monthly, utilize one of those meetings to think about not just the projects, but actually your career, your expectations, your performance, any, feedback, how you can do things better. And, at least once a month, you can chat about things like that. You also, of course, want to set up your project management system and say super organized. Where are your open to-dos, open emails? Do you have Google Drive? Do you have folders? How are you tracking your to-dos, due dates, whether it's Trello or whatever tool you're using? Just really set yourself up to stay organized from the get-go. And keep a list of your ideas. Your fresh eyes are going to be so, so, so powerful. And so in the beginning, you might share an idea more like, oh, have you ever tried this? Whereas after a few weeks or maybe a few months, you're going to start to figure out, okay, when do I feel that I'm knowledgeable enough to actually start proposing some ideas or solutions? But keep track of all those because you may notice or see things that other people are not. And of course, track your achievements. I love to send at least a monthly, update to some stakeholders, whether it's your manager or whoever else makes sense. It could be a one pager, but that's a great way to be proactive from the get-go so that when it comes time for performance reviews, you could really look back at the entire year and see what you've done over the course of time. And really ask about your performance expectations, right? So even if performance reviews are not happening for many months, ask them where is that list of performance expectations that you can refer to. Sometimes the learning management system only opens up the review cycle every 2 weeks out of the year, but where can you refer to your expectations that you will be reviewed on at that time so that you can have that proactively, and you can even do a self review once a month, and you can use that to inform the meetings with your manager to chat about your feedback on a regular basis. So make sure you get those expectations in a written format if you can. And when you're training, so say you're taking on a new process, this is a great rule of thumb, and they may not exactly train you in this manner, but this is something you can always ask for. So step one would be to read any procedure documents or process documentation that you can. Then ideally you would shadow someone else, and then they could shadow you, and then you do it on your own. Training wheels come off. So that's a great way to adopt or take over a new process if that's something you're being trained on. And just ask a ton of questions. I think a lot of people get worried about someone's too busy, but don't hesitate just because people seem busy. But what you can do is just get creative and chunk your questions, right? So make a running list, and maybe once a day you could say, oh, do you have 5 minutes? I have a few questions for you. And that way they know you're prepared and you're going to use their time wisely. But try to get those questions answered within 24 to 48 hours of having the question in the first place. That way your learnings are really compounding fast. And just, making it easy for others to help you. Maybe you send them a written list of questions and they could send you a video back, or it could be a quick phone call or a meeting. And of course, you can always go to your peers and colleagues before a manager if that's something you feel you can take advantage of. Be resourceful in who you get support from and when and how. And what else? You can also ask a preference, right? So ask your manager, how and when and where should I both ask you questions and give updates? What's their preference? And just don't take on any personas, right? Be authentic. If you're yourself from the get-go, you're not going to have to continue to keep up some persona of, acting some way that you're really not. So be yourself. And that's the best way to get up to speed quickly, because you shouldn't need to worry about being someone you're not. Just be in the moment, try to be focused, and learn as much as you can. And just again, that documentation is really important. I had a client once where, I think their manager might have left after a few months that they joined. So documentation is so important proactively for so many reasons. And just making sure your organizational system is in place. And those are just a few of my best practices when you're onboarding to a new role. Of course, we can dive deeper and show you some of those visual templates, but do reach out if you have questions, and I hope this was helpful.